Hello and welcome to my channel for another custom action figure build. Today we're going to be making the Last Ronin from the IDW Ninja Turtles comic book series. Now for those unfamiliar with it, it's a future story in which 3 of the 4 turtles are long past, and one of them, who is the Last Ronin, is kind of out for vengeance. He's decked out in black ninja garb and carries the weapons of his fallen brothers. It's a really cool story. It's been very popular, and as such, NECA has a figure that's soon to be released based on that comic series, sculpted by the great Paul Harding, who does a ton of their figures for them. It's a really phenomenal looking figure that's based on the comic book version, and I wanted to do one that has a more realistic feel to it. So I'm going to sort of be basing this both on the comic look and on a painting that I did about 1.5 years ago that depicted sort of my interpretation of the comic book version of the character. I decided to use a movie Raphael as a base figure. We're going to throw some soft goods on it, get the weapons all together, and hopefully make something cool out of it. So I invite you to come along with me as I make it, and let's get to it. Alright, so here are the supplies we're going to be using. First off, we have our base figure, which is the NECA 1990 movie Raphael. Now, unfortunately, this is a bootleg version. I know it's kind of hard to know which one you're going to get when you find one on eBay for a good price, and this one was a bootleg, so it is what it is. You know, it's a good bootleg, but I don't really want to support that kind of thing because I think NECA is a great company that makes great stuff. But you know, it's what I ended up with, so it's what we're using. I've already done a couple things to it. I took the elbow and knee pads off. Those are all going to be used in the build, so we're keeping those around. And then I put a pair of pants on them to see if they would fit, and they fit really well, and I just left them on. So these are pants I got from GPS Lot. They are part of like a karate uniform, and I had a couple pairs of them from various projects where I just used the top half or what have you. So this is going to be the sleeves. I'm going to cut these off and attach them. The mask is a separate piece, and another way you can tell this is a knockoff, aside from just like the paint's not as good as the actual NECA version, is you can see the glue here. I'm going to boil this and pop the mask off, because what I'd like to do is use this like scrap shirt that I have that I've already cut some pieces out of to try to glue the mask fabric to this mask, so that way it'll keep with the sort of fabric soft goods look of this. Now I'm using Raphael, even though, you know, spoiler alert, in the comic the Last Ronin is Michelangelo, but the reason I'm using Raphael is I think he has the best neutral base head of these turtles. You know, Donatello has a pretty pronounced beak, Michelangelo looks a little too like bright-eyed, and Leonardo has a very, you know, pronounced like kind of rounded beak. So I think this is just a really good, I don't want to say generic base, but it's, you know, it has less like defining features to the point where you look at it and go, that's Donatello or whatever. So for the sort of tunic that he wears, I got this from GPS Lot. If you watch my videos, you know that I use GPS Lot quite a bit for soft goods. They're an excellent eBay seller, and they had this cloak that was for some like a Jedi or something, and or it might have just been generic, I don't know, but it's perfect for this. It's got a wired hood, it's got the seam lines here, got this cool like kind of little rivet attachment. So it was a little bit long, so I just kind of folded it up, but it's wired all the way through, which really helped with that. And then I cut holes for the arms, and then for the shoulder pads, you know, in the comic he's got these like armor pieces that are like pleated with padding. It's like quilted kind of looking. I thought about sculpting that, but I had these NECA colonial marine alien shoulder pad things, and I think they look pretty cool. So I'm gonna make these work, figure out how to paint these in a way that still kind of gives the general feel of what the comic version does. So I've got one for each side, and then we've got the belt. Now the belt is going to be a combination of 2 different ones, because with the shell these guys are pretty thick. So I'm going to be using the belt that came with Raphael, as well as this Winter Soldier Diamond Select belt that I had. I actually had this on a different figure, a different custom, but I'm more excited about this one. I think it'll look cool on it. So I'm going to get the head boiled off, take this apart, and then get this guy painted up. Okay, I got the mask off. This looks incredible. So if you're ever wondering what they look like without the mask on, there it is. So obviously I need to scrape off some of this where the paint stuck to the plastic when it came off, and then I'm gonna sculpt in some little wrinkles and repaint the eyes. That okay with you, Leo? All right, quick check in here. So I've got the sleeves on. Again, these were just legs of the same kind of pants that he has on that I cut and then I glued them up here. But they're also being held in place by these elbow pads. Now the pads, when you take them off, there's actually like a little peg underneath in the elbow itself, and they kind of just notch right onto there. So that's also holding it in place, and I cut a hole in the sleeve for that. Now I forgot to mention earlier, I will be using for gauntlets, I have these like shin guard leg brace pieces from a NECA Kick-Ass figure. Essentially, it'll go on over that. And then I'll repaint these to make them look kind of like a silvery kind of metallic metal plated material. I've got the mask done. Basically, I stretched that t-shirt material over it and glued it on, and then I cut holes for the eyes. I am gonna have to go in and paint black around the edges just to make sure that you don't see the red coming through. But I'm happy with how it looks. I think it turned out well. I also sculpted the wrinkles onto his face. For that, I used A's epoxy sculpt. I've used this on the channel before, so if you are familiar with my videos, you'll probably have seen this. This is an AB compound, so basically you mix two parts together and you have a workable clay for about an hour and a half before it starts to harden. I also made this knee pad thing that he has. It's like this metal circular thing. And then I'm gonna have to do some kind of wrap for the shins. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to use yet. I think I have some fabric that looks kind of bandage-esque, so I'll wrap that around. But yeah, he's starting to come together. So next I'm going to paint the head. Once I do that, I can pop the mask on, and I'm looking forward to repainting the eyes. This is just kind of the standard eye paint job they have, and I think it'll look cool if I make them look a little more realistic. Now the problem is they're hard to see under the mask anyway, so that's going to be a factor, but you know, when the light hits it right, they'll be peeking through. I think it'll look pretty cool. So next up, I'm gonna try my best to match the paint and, you know, kind of bring some life into it and go from there. Now, mixing paint is really just about kind of adding different colors in, different tones until you get the right thing. And a lot of it is just eyeballing and kind of using what I've learned over, you know, my lifetime of being an artist to match them. So I can't really give you an exact color usage. It's really just about what looks right. I do want to take a brief break to show you all a quick trailer to my graphic novel Count that I wrote and drew. It's a sci-fi reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo.
That okay with you, Leo?
Okay, so I got the eyes repainted and I cleaned up around the edges where there was like red and glue from the bandana that was on there previously. I also trimmed the line around it so that it would sit lower on the head because it was sitting a little bit too high, especially once I added like a millimeter of fabric to it. You know, the eyes aren't perfect, but they are a little more lifelike than they were. They've got some shine to them. And the edges where there was like red and glue from the bandana that was on there previously. I also trimmed the line around it so that it would sit lower on the head because it was sitting a little bit too high, especially once I added like a millimeter of fabric to it. You know, the eyes aren't perfect, but they are a little more lifelike than they were. They've got some shine to them. I made it so that they were looking up more, like you can kind of tilt the head down and he's still looking at you, as opposed to they were looking almost down before. The next step is going to be to put the bandana on and hope that it doesn't look bad. All right, quick check in here. So I got the belt done. I glued the sleeves down so that the slack is out of the way so that I can put those gauntlets on. I wrapped the lower legs with this, you know, bandage looking fabric. The head with the, I'm really happy with the paint job. I feel like I matched it really well to what was there already and kind of blended it nicely. So I'm pleased with that. I'm not going to paint the hands, you know, in the book he's got like gloved hands. I like having the pops of green, so I'm gonna keep the hands as is. Got to make the weapons holder still, and then I've got to paint the shoulder armor and the gauntlets. But yeah, getting there. This guy's getting close to being done, and I'm happy with how he's looking so far. I have all of the weapons except for the bow staff. So we're going to make one using one of these wooden dowels that came in the wooden dowel pack that I have. And I'll post a link to those. They come in handy for a lot of different projects, so I really recommend having them. They're inexpensive. They come in a variety of sizes, and they'll probably bail you out of a bind when you're trying to make something. So definitely check those out. I'm just going to shorten this one a bit because it's just a little bit too long. This is going to be pretty simple. We're going to take some brown acrylic paint. As always, I'm using this Deco Art brand. This is like $1 to $2 at the craft store. And I'm going to just mix in a tiny bit of black with this too, because I want some variations in the brown. Now this dark wash will absorb into the wood here, and then we'll go over it again with some brown that has a little bit less water in it, and that will kind of give us the best of both worlds here. All right, so now that that's dry, I got some thread out and I tied it around this, and then I think this is gonna work. I'm just gonna take some glue, put some glue along the stick, and then just take this and wrap it. And I'm doubling it up quite a bit because it's super thin thread, so I want to make sure I get good coverage. Okay, now I do expect the glue to hold this pretty well, but I am going to go ahead and tie this off anyway. If you're doing intricate work like this, get yourself a good set of tweezers. I just got a set finally. I was using these crappy ones that were like secondhand forever. And I finally was like, you know what am I doing? And I got this really great set. I'll put a link in the description below. They were really inexpensive, and they come with there's like 20 different ones or something. So it's been super helpful to have here. Get these other real fine tip ones here. And we've got ourselves a bow staff. Working on the ring for his back where these will all tie to, and then once we get that tied on, this guy's gonna be done. All right, here he is all finished, and I'm very happy with the result. So let's give him a 360 here. Now, I did all the ring and weapon assembly stuff off camera because I was dealing with yarn that I used to kind of make the rope that ties it all, and it was a real pain. So I don't recommend using yarn for that sort of thing. It's very soft, and you get a lot of these little flyaway kind of fibers. I think it looks good, but it's just difficult to handle. Let's go over some of the stuff that I didn't do on camera. First of all, the goggles. So these were a pair of Mezco 112 Pink Skull Society or something. Whatever the rock band guys that just came out. This is a pair of those that I got loose from somebody on Mercari. They basically parted out the set and were selling pieces of it. And I knew I'd have use for these, so I bought 2 pairs from them. And basically I just painted them red, and I added a little bit of an elastic band in the center and just glued it in. So I cut the goggles in half, added this elastic band, and then that actually makes it so that they fit onto his head. The shoulder pads I'm really pleased with. They have these little buckles, which I think is a nice detail. So I painted them these colors, this kind of worn down metal look, and then I used the Molotow chrome pen on the little rivets, and I think that just adds a nice detail to them. These are the gauntlets that I used from that Kick-Ass figure that I ended up painting, and I think they work perfectly for this. We've got NECA movie foot soldier nunchucks here, and this pair of sai on the back. I thought about using the sai from the movie Raphael, but I think these look cool. The ring was a steering wheel from a toy car that I just cut up and spray painted silver to use. And then the sword, I got this from a company. I need to look up who it was. I've had them for over a year now. You could get really good 1/12 scale samurai swords from them for like a good deal. So I bought a bunch of them, and so I had this sitting around. You saw me make the bow staff. Very pleased with how it turned out. Also, to attach the shoulder pads, I was trying to figure out how I was going to do it. And I was sitting there racking my brain, and then I was like, duh, magnets. I always forget about magnets as an option, even though I'm always like, magnets are great. So I basically just glued a magnet to the underside of them and then just tucked a magnet under the shoulder piece of this tunic, and it just, you know, holds it in place. So the knee pad I made out of the epoxy sculpt and glued an elastic strap to it. I opted not to do sandals because, you know, the turtles are famously barefoot. They've been barefoot for like, you know, what, 35, 37 years. So I just figured, like, you know, if it ain't broke. And then let's take a look at the face in more detail. So this is wired again, which is nice because you can pull the hood back and, you know, form it in place. I repainted the eyes and added gloss to them, and I think they look pretty cool. The shadow's so dark it makes it kind of hard to see them, but they are in there. When the light catches it, it looks pretty cool. I'm pleased with how the wrinkles turned out. You know, I added this bit in here, like these kind of jowls on either side, and then the wrinkles on the forehead. I didn't want to go too overboard with it because I think that is a slippery slope, so I left it pretty subtle, but I think it definitely ages him up an appropriate amount. Yeah, there he is. And, you know, the nice thing is with the soft goods, he maintains the articulation that the figure already had. So anything you could do with a NECA movie turtle, you can do with this guy. Yeah, this is really fun. This is a lot of fun. I mean, what a cool design that the comics have for this guy. And there you can see the hood go back on. Here he is striking a bit more of a fighting pose. Yeah, I'm gonna need to make a cool display for this guy because I'm really happy with how this figure turned out, and I would like to see it in an environment of some kind. Here he is with the goggles on. Pretty easy to get on him, I will say, which is nice. It might be a little bit wide, but I think they look pretty sweet. Yeah, what a cool design for a turtle. I really enjoyed this. You know, I think anytime you take something and you kind of like make a different iteration of it than we're used to, we always go like, oh my god, it's so cool, like Old Man Logan or whatever. But yeah, what do you all think? I mean, have you read this comic? Have you enjoyed it? I'm behind on it. I read the first 2 issues and then I just got busy with work and stuff, so I plan to finish up the run, but it really ignited some excitement into me as a Turtles fan, that's for sure. And I mean, you saw the painting I did of this when the book first came out. I don't usually get to make the time to be like, oh, I want to just draw something that I am a fan of because I enjoy it. So that was a lot of fun. So there you have it, my NECA 1990 movie style The Last Ronin figure. As I said, I'll put links below to the supplies that I used, tweezers, all that kind of good stuff. And then if you have any other questions about what I used or the process, just let me know down in the comments below and I'll get back to you. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. And if you enjoy this kind of content, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and come with me. Pretty much every week I'm uploading a new custom figure build, custom vehicle, or diorama. In the middle of this video, you'll see a brief trailer for my graphic novel Count. I wrote and drew myself with colors by Brad Simpson, letters by Haas Otsumano. Very proud of it. It's a sci-fi reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo. So it's a story of revenge, redemption, retribution. There's cool sword fights, weaponry, swashbuckling action, vehicle chases, androids. It has a lot of heart to it too. So if that sounds like something you're into, there's a link in the description below. That's going to do it for this week. Until next time, keep your head on swivel.